If you love a good before and after room makeover, then you are really going to enjoy today's video because this room transformation is amazing. My youngest son moved out a few months ago. So my husband and I are now officially empty nesters. And his bedroom had always been decorated in a sports theme with plaques and trophies on all the walls and shelves. So I couldn't wait to get in there and redecorate in something that was much more my style. And you know what that means. There will be lots of vintage thrift store finds and maybe some William Morris wallpaper. And of course, I'll be sharing lots of tips and tricks to help you with your own room makeovers. I can't wait for you to see the after. So let's get started. My son moved out a couple months ago, and I just left his room looking sad and empty because I knew that once I had time after Christmas, I wanted to do an entire room makeover. It is a nice sized room, though, with an alcove containing a built in desk and shelves. The first thing that I wanted to do was try moving the queen size bed to be placed between the two large windows. This is a much more aesthetically pleasing arrangement. However, you do kind of run into the foot of the bed when you walk in the door from the hallway. The next thing I wanted to do was trade out the armoire with a much prettier one from the spare bedroom. And I wanted to bring up the large area rug from the dining room. I have another rug in the basement that can go in the dining room instead. Then I was ready to start painting, but first I needed to wipe down the walls and all the woodwork, and I taped off the top of the baseboards. I chose a deep grayish blue paint from Dutch Boy called Navigation. Dutch Boy is a good quality paint, and I love that it comes in an easy to pour plastic jug. I've painted a lot of rooms over the years, so I have a routine that I tend to follow. I use a brush to paint along the baseboard and around any obstructions in the wall, and then I roll on the paint on the lower half of the wall. Next, I get out my ladder and I paint along the ceiling line, and then I roll on the upper half of the wall. And I like to use a small roller to get into narrow spaces. I decided to paint over the metal shelf brackets in the alcove and over the large air vent to make them less noticeable in the wall. I also decided to remove the 1960s era radio and speaker system from the wall and try repairing the large hole with a piece of sheetrock. I got lucky, and there was a metal frame inside the hole that I was able to use as a pattern to cut my sheetrock to the exact size that I needed to fill the hole. If you've never cut sheetrock before, all you need is a sturdy utility knife. Just score your lines along one side of the sheetrock, and then you can just snap it apart. I should have scored along the papered side, though. Because the hole is so large, I needed to add a piece of wood in the hole so that I would have something to attach the sheetrock to. Most people use drywall screws, but it was just a lot easier for me to use my brad nailer, and it seems super sturdy, so I think it'll be just fine. Next, I pushed my piece of sheetrock into the hole and then used my brad nailer again to attach the sheetrock to the piece of wood. Next, I cut and adhered some fiberglass tape over the four edges of my sheetrock. If you skip this step, then eventually your joint compound will crack along those lines in due time. Next, use a putty knife to apply joint compound over the tape. Joint compound needs 24 hours to dry before you can sand it smooth,
and you'll need to reapply joint compound and resand 2 or 3 times to get a smooth, perfect finish. Don't rush it and paint too soon because once you paint over the joint compound, it is much harder to sand smooth. To update the desk, I decided to paint the cabinet and drawers, but not the laminate countertop and not the solid wood shelves. I cleaned the cabinet and drawers really well with liquid sandpaper, and then I brushed on a shellac primer. You really must apply a separate primer for the best adhesion and for long-term durability, even if you're using a Paint Plus primer. Once the primer was dry, I applied an acrylic enamel paint in the same color as my wall paint. Acrylic enamel creates a harder, durable, and more water-resistant finish than a typical latex paint you would use on your walls.
Okay, well, now that the paint is up, I can't wait to change out this bedding. You know, we spend a third of our lives in bed. Well, at least I do, because I love my sleep and I love to read in bed. So it's really important to me to create a cozy, relaxing environment. I discovered Brooklinen sheets a couple years ago. So as soon as I started this room makeover, I went on the Brooklinen website and I was so excited to see that they had several new patterns and colors, like Abyss, this gorgeous deep blue. Now, I hadn't even decided on my wallpaper yet, but I had to have these. And I ordered the hardcore bundle because it comes with your flat and fitted sheets, your pillowcases, and a duvet, all at a discounted price. And I ordered the percale sheets because I love how cool and crisp and soft they feel all at once. And my husband is a hot sleeper, and these sheets really help him to stay cool at night. Okay, well, let's throw these in the washing machine and get started on that wallpaper.
It took me a while to choose a wallpaper pattern, but ultimately I agreed with you guys and went with the blue and salmon acanthus pattern. I shifted the bed a few inches to the left to create more space between the desk and the bed and the door and the foot of the bed. Therefore, I'm lining up my first piece of wallpaper with the center of the headboard rather than the center mark between the two windows. I measured out half the width of the wallpaper, which was 10 1/4 inches, from the middle of the headboard. That is where I would line up the edge of my first piece of wallpaper. I will never hang peel and stick wallpaper again without using this Easy Hang spray. It allows you to readjust the wallpaper during the hanging process, and it creates a much stronger adhesion between the paper and the wall. I'll be honest, I haven't removed any paper when I've used this product, so if you rent, you may want to test this out in a small area first. When applying peel and stick wallpaper, you want to pull off the backing about 12 inches at a time because you do not want the paper to get stuck to itself. It may wrinkle or tear when you pull it apart. I've learned this the hard way. Take your time and go over the wallpaper multiple times with a plastic scraper to remove wrinkles and air bubbles. This also ensures that the paper is securely adhered to the wall. Because I really struggled papering around the windows in my hallway, I came up with a shortcut this time. I lined up the first piece of paper and lightly adhered it to the top portion of the wall above the window. Then I cut off the entire section below the top window frame. Next, I cut the strip I needed to go along the side and bottom of the window. You can slightly overlap peel and stick wallpaper, something that you don't want to do with traditional wallpaper. If you struggle with that bottom piece below the window frame, you can cut straight across the bottom edge of the window too and apply this section separately, which I did end up doing on the other window. The seams are barely noticeable and will be covered by curtains anyway. The dryer just buzzed, so I'm going to take a break and make up the bed. Another thing that I just love about Brooklinen's percale sheets is that even though they're super soft, they're not wrinkly when they come out of the dryer.
I am in love with this bedding. I wish you could feel how soft it is. But if you would like to give Brooklinen a try, now is the perfect time because they are offering my viewers $20 off an order of $100 or more. And that's a great deal. Just click on the link in the description box below.
I wallpapered over the plastic anchors for the drapery hardware, so it only took me a few minutes to reattach the brackets. I picked up some inexpensive curtains from Walmart. They were the perfect shade of blue and had a subtle floral pattern that I liked. To add a bit of length and to make the curtains look more elegant, I attached curtain rings along the top edge. The windows already have blinds, so the curtains add softness while allowing the wallpaper to be the star of the show. For the small side window, I attached the left bracket farther from the window to create the illusion of a slightly larger window. The paint, wallpaper, and curtains are up, but I still have a few things that I need to take care of before I can start decorating. First, I need to return the shelves to the alcove, but since I will no longer be displaying 100 trophies, I think I'll just return 2 of the 3 shelves. This will allow space for my lamp on the desk. I also needed to return the hardware to the desk drawers and doors. I thought about buying new, but then I just decided I would refresh what I already had using a little gold rub and buff. The rub and buff got rid of that bronze hue and made the hardware look more like solid brass, at least in my opinion. The outlet covers were shiny silver, so I first spray painted them with Zinsser primer, and then I brushed on 2 light coats of the blue wall paint. For the light switch cover, I also applied a small piece of wallpaper in the center inset area and cut a hole for the switch. Some viewers are in disbelief at what I find on the curb, so this time I took a picture of the 3 nightstands I recently picked up. Oddly enough, the large nightstand matches our original Broyhill bedroom set. It was wobbly, but I soon discovered that one of the furniture glides was missing, so once I attached a new one to that leg, it was just fine. However, I still had to address the very damaged wood, and since the wood had a strong orange hue, I decided to paint it. I first applied a shellac primer, and once the primer was dry, I applied a green acrylic enamel paint that I already had on hand. Acrylic enamel paint is water-soluble, but once it dries, it forms a water-resistant and durable finish. I decided to paint the other nightstand to match. With the new furniture arrangement, there was space for a chair, and I thrifted this fabulous vintage velvet chair for less than $7. Our house was built in 1962, and for some reason, it has almost no ceiling lights, so every room needs several lamps. I had these glass ones, but then I found this pair of green and gold lamps for just $10. And I love the lampshades. Look at those darling little inset crystals. For the desk, I thrifted this swivel arm brass lamp, and when I have time, I plan on making a pleated fabric lampshade to coordinate with the wallpaper. Since the primary wall is wallpapered, I don't think the room needs a lot of wall art, but I do have a few thrifted finds that I think are perfect for this room. I try to leave the tags on my thrift store finds so that I can show you guys what I paid, but for some reason I took them off these pieces of wall art. But I know that I didn't pay more than a couple dollars for any of the 4 pieces. And now for the final touches, decorating with my thrift store finds. Here is my card at Goodwill filled with decor that I hoped to use in the bedroom. This bird plaque caught my eye because, well, I love bird art. I also love brass, and this heavy brass box was such a deal for less than $5. I liked the toile pattern on the rim of these plates and thought they would be something a bit unexpected to display in a bedroom. I thought this green dish would look nice next to the plates. I picked up some dried baby's breath. The mauve color would pick up on the pink flowers in the wallpaper. I wanted some dark wood elements to tie in with the desktop and armoire, and found these 3 small wood jars that I grouped together and filled with some dried flowers. I also thrifted a travel alarm clock to place on the nightstand. I paid 50 cents for a book on Impressionist art, and I cut out one of the pictures to place in a small thrifted brass frame. I also thrifted a 5x7 brass frame, and for that one, I printed out an image of William Morris's Tree of Life tapestry. This ceramic horse was only $4, and I thought it would add some interest inside the armoire. And for the top of the armoire, I filled a $3 wicker basket with some hydrangeas that I dried this past fall. I wasn't planning on using these cardboard boxes my son left behind, but then I decided they might look cute covered in some of the leftover wallpaper, and it only took a couple minutes to cover them. Because I didn't have room for a bench, I placed a couple vintage suitcases at the foot of the bed on the left side away from the door. And then I cut a hole in a cheap woven basket so that it would fit over the suitcase handle. I topped it with another basket and added a few decor items. All right, before I show the final room reveal, let's take a quick look back at how this room started. You've seen the before, now here is the after. The only things purchased new for this room makeover were the bedding, curtains, wallpaper, and 1 gallon of paint. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Thank you so much for watching. And here's another room makeover I think you might like.